Hey everybody, Nick here, and today I got a review for you of this very interesting little knife right here. This is the We Knives and Isham Arrakis. Very, very interesting piece, and glad I get to check one out. And actually, speaking of that, thank you very much to my Patreon patrons for sending this guy along. Well, not really. I bought it myself from Bream Blade HQ, but nevertheless, thank you for them to make it very, very easy for me to see a $330 knife and go, yeah, I should probably check one of those out. Boom, done. It just makes my life easier. So thank you, patrons. You make this channel possible. Next thing, size comparison. This is kind of a weirdly sized knife in that it's not actually that big, but it feels big. Here it is against the Spyderco Delica, as always, the Ontario Rat #1 and the Ontario Rat #2. So you can see here, yeah, it's reasonably sized. In some ways, it's so weird that it's hard to even talk about the size of it. But that is what the size of it is. Next thing, who the heck does this? This is Elijah Isham. He is a designer you've seen on the channel many times. Known for like the Kaiser Megatherium, the Wii Eschaton, the Zeta, the Theta, I'm sure he's got a beta out there. The Pleroma, most recently, the freaking Reticulum. He's a weird designer. I mean he makes weird designs, and I think he's a little bit of a weird human. I say that with love, Elijah. You get that, so am I. But still, he is a designer who does really interesting stuff, and this is kind of a follow-up to one of his previous pieces. I reviewed on the channel sometime back the We Knives Eschaton, which was an absolutely amazing art knife, which was completely... Whether or not it's a knife, I don't really take a strong position. This guy is sort of modeled, I think, after the Eschaton, but it's designed to make something that is absolutely a knife. This is a knife 100%. Whether it's the right knife for you, that's a different question, but it is absolutely 100% a knife, and I think that's what this is trying to do. It's following up on the Eschaton to make something for somebody who loved the original idea, but wants something a little more practical, and that's where we're at. So let's go on ahead and jump into the good, the great, the bad, the ugly of this very interesting little knife right here. So on the good side, to start with, I do appreciate the fact that this is a slightly more function-focused design. You know, the Eschaton was a little crazy. It was super lightweight, but it was also quite large, and it had a weird compound grind to the blade. It was not necessarily the knife you'd want to carry, and Elijah has definitely dialed the function up a little bit on this guy, so that's great. Next thing, this is a We knife, and that means it's going to be good to go in terms of construction. Construction on this is quite good. It's what you would expect out of a $330 knife. And, you know, you've got this cool kind of subframe integral thing where this chunk of it is actually one continuous chunk of metal, and it's got these two things that attach on the sides there. Everything is just where you want it to be. Steel is M390. You can see it labeled very subtly right there. By the way, this is not going to cut you because he's put enough buffer up there, which makes that easy. But the simple fact is that it's well built. It is a beautifully constructed knife. For $330, I got nothing I can really complain about build quality-wise. It's pretty good to go. Actually, that brings us to the next thing, which is the blade on this guy. I mean, it's a weird blade, but it's a fine blade. It's M390 steel, which is one of the best blade steels in the world, if not the best for knife cutlery kind of use. It is beautifully done. It actually does grind down. It comes down to a relatively thin edge here. It's not, you know, the thinnest thing ever, but it's pretty damn good. And so this is a very nice little blade on there. It comes out to its full thickness in pretty quickly in a couple of these regions here, but it is definitely a very nice blade. Next thing, this has a low-profile flipper tab. When this guy's hanging in your pocket, the flipper tab can't really interact with anything else because it's down there at the bottom. And you know what? It works quite well. Deploys reliably 100% of the time. Has a very nice action. Not really a flickable knife, by the way, unless you've got like a really long fingernail or something you can get in there. But it deploys reliably 100% of the time with zero wrist. Yeah, absolutely great. The action on this guy is good to go. And then finally on the good side, this guy is named after a planet from the Dune series of books, which is pretty awesome. I'm a giant sci-fi nerd, so I'm definitely loving it. I like Elijah's themes, and yeah, Dune is a nice series. So anyways, there you go. That to me is what's good here. It's named after a sci-fi planet. It's a low-profile flipper tab. It is got a very nice blade. It is nicely built overall. Build quality is just great. And it is a more function-forward design than some of his, than the Eschaton it's kind of modeled after. On the great side, to me, I do like the design of this guy. Look, it's weird. It's 100% weird. You take one look at this and note that the whole damn thing, practically, excepting the clip down there, is a flow-through design. You can see the entirety. I mean, It's so freaking strange, but I find it very attractive. It's a compelling-looking knife. It's not going to be for everybody. For a lot of people, they're going to look at that and be like, oh my god, it's like a cybernetic slug or something like that. And sure, I can see that. But the simple fact is that this remains a very unique and unusual design. I like the look of it a lot. I don't know what the heck it looks like, but whatever it is, it's cool. And it's unusual. Nobody else in the knife world is making knives like this. That's true. It would take a very strange individual to make a knife like this, and luckily we got one of them. But nevertheless, it is absolutely unusual, but the thing is, it's also still more practical. So to me, what's great about this guy is this design. It is so weird. It is so cool, and it's still actually a functional piece of cutlery. I mean, look at the little design details, like the fact that this little pocket here goes right into the handle. Like, that's not covering anything up. All of these things match. These things just barely peeking out above there. I mean, oh, man. Design-wise, this is just on point. Or even just the curvature of the blade coming into this area here. Yeah, I'm digging it. I am so digging it. So, to me, that's what's great, is the design of this guy is really, really cool looking. On the bad side, there are some bad things here. I mean, to start with, this is relatively thick in terms of blade stock, and it does kind of thicken up pretty quickly, especially down here. You go to the full thickness of the stock very quickly. So down here, it's a little more axe-like, but you do get some thin areas up toward the top, so that's okay. But that's something to keep in mind. Next thing, unfortunately, the inside of the blade groove here has not been chamfered really at all. This is actually a relatively sharp set of surfaces inside here. And what this means more than anything is that you've got a lot of potential for snaggage. You have the very easy potential, if you're cutting through something, for instance, like a foam, for the foam to expand into here and then get caught up on the inside of this fuller here. I don't know if I guess it's a fuller. It's a weird thing. Whatever the heck it is, it's weird. And so there's a lot of the snaggage potential. It's also going to be kind of a pain in the neck to clean, because you've got these little short area, you got these little corners up inside there. It's just, yeah, that's going to be a factor. And something you're going to want to keep in mind. That kind of a blade, cut through is certainly pretty, but functionally speaking, not super ideal. There's a lot to be said for a big, expansive, flat blade. Next thing, ergos on this guy are, they're not amazing. You can grip like this, you get some hot spot off of there. Actually, to me, the most comfortable grip for this guy is to choke up a little bit, use this as a finger choil, and then put my thumb into this little thumb ramp area. And actually, when I'm doing this, it works out pretty well. There's a bit of a hole down here, but that works pretty okay for my relatively small hands. But other grips are a little bit less personally compelling, with things like this little area kind of digging in from time to time. These sharp back corners we'll come back to, but nevertheless, ergonomically, it's better than you might expect just looking at it, but at the same time, it's not something I'm super in love with. I think Elijah's done better ergonomic designs. Then finally, on the bad side, it's $330. It's up there. I mean, I don't feel like they're ripping me off. It's a partial integral knife. It's M390. There's nothing I'm like, oh my God, you idiot. No, I don't have any of that going on, but it's also not the kind of value that we used to hope for from WE knives. And so it's definitely up there, and that's going to be a deal breaker for a lot of people. If you love the design, you're going to pay that gladly, but I think for a lot of folks, that just puts it up into an area where you really have to be in love in order to make that price happen. So to me, that's the bad, is that it's $330, which is a lot of money. The ergos aren't amazing. You got a lot of potential for snaggage going on up in here, and you have a very thick blade that comes out to full thickness pretty quickly in some areas of the knife. On the ugly front, the clip on this guy isn't great. Unfortunately, what he's done here is he's actually recessed. I'll see if I can show you. Can I show you this? Yeah, the clip itself is kind of recessed into this little groove. You can see the same groove on the other side here. The clip is kind of sitting inside there. So that means that not only do you have to get your pocket to kind of bend underneath, like it has to cup down underneath the clip. It can't, for instance, on a knife like this, where the pocket material just slides along the handle here, it has to do that. But you're also on top of this area where you've got all of these little ribbing for your pleasure. It can be put into and out of the pocket, and if you love the design, you'll probably get past that. But honestly, this clip doesn't work so well for me. It gets the job done, but it's a pain in the neck. Every time I repocketed this guy, I was like, oh yeah, that's right, that clip. It's not something I'm loving, and it's not super impressive. I put it in the ugly because, Yeah, I mean, at some level, he could have filled those in, or at least done some, I don't know, whatever. Not a fan, though. That's ugly to me. The other thing that is absolutely ugly is this sharp back corner of the design here. Now, it's not sharp in the cut you open sense. You can see here they've rounded it off relatively well. The simple fact is that every time you deploy this knife, you are going to be digging that into your hand, into the palm of your hand there. And that's not something I super love. There's a reason that most flipping knives have some kind of a rounding in that back area. Like, for instance, this is another WE knife. Well, there's Vivi Stratera here. There, it's very, very easy to just kind of push that up against your hand. Boom, no freaking problem. Or even like the Spyderco Smock here. It's a very different kind of flipping knife. But again, it's nicely rounded. It just braces against your hand. Boom, you flip, you're done. Life is easy. Whereas on this guy, you've got that sharp corner that's digging in. Now look, it's for the design. I totally see it. I understand why they would do that. But I kind of wish that they had rounded this top part off here a little bit more and given us a smoother surface, a flatter surface down there at the top. Not the end of the world, but it's certainly a little bit of a pain every time you flip it, and coupled with the every time that you pocket, it's going to be a little bit of a pain because of that clip. That, to me, is the ugly. So, on the final conclusion front, look, this knife feels to me like Elijah sat down and said, okay, Eschaton, it's a badass knife, not really a knife, though. Let's see if I can make something that's a lot like the Eschaton, but is something someone that would actually, want to carry and use. He's trying to turn the Eschaton design into a reasonable daily driver. And indeed, I think he has actually succeeded. I mean, this is much more reasonable as a daily knife than the Eschaton was. That doesn't take too much, but it certainly is. And on top of that, I feel like it is a well-made knife. It's got premium materials, and it's at a price that is within reach for a lot of higher-end kind of collectors. That said, for this guy, you absolutely have to want this design. You want to have an Elijah Isham art knife. I mean, Elijah has some very function-forward designs, but he also does things like this that are much more artistic, and that's what you're getting here, because you are paying a price for that art in this particular case. You're getting a thick and snaggy blade with all this fuller stuff. It's just not the king of cutting. The ergos on it are a little bit challenging. Mostly, the price is a little high here, more than a little high, actually. And you're paying for a design which, well, okay, it's not high in light of the machining. Look, it's an expensive knife, we'll put it that way. But anyways, and you're paying for the design in terms of the sharp back corner here, as well as this clip, which is, it certainly looks good, but it isn't working quite so well. So that makes this guy a very situational kind of recommendation. If you tried the Eschaton, you absolutely loved it. You want every bit of the Eschaton in your pocket, but you found it just too impractical despite your heart. This knife is custom made for you. If you love Elijah's work, you love his higher-end art knife stuff, and you want to carry something that is absolutely an art knife, and I think that this is, then this knife is kind of tailor-made to you. This is a practical art knife. It is a knife that is designed to hit that sweet spot for somebody who wants a high-end Elijah Isham design, as well as reasonable functionality. But the simple fact, though, is that you need to be head over heels in love with the design for this to even be a consideration, for this to even make sense. If you are just looking for a pocket knife and design isn't your main concern, this really isn't the best choice. $330 can buy you some of the very best knives on earth. And although it is amazing in terms of its design, from a function-forward perspective, this is not one of the best knives on earth. You can do a lot better for $330 if you just want a knife to cut things and carry in your everyday life. So I guess my final conclusion on this guy is quite mixed. I think it's a gorgeous knife, but I also think it's kind of impractical still. And the simple fact is that here, this is an art knife. It happens to carry okay if you want it, if you're into that kind of thing, but it's not the kind of knife I want in my final collection. Put differently, well-made, well-designed, but at the end of the day, the Arrakis is going to be a little too spicy for most people. Get it? Spice joke? The spice must flow? No? All right. Anyways, hope this has been interesting to you, and you're having a good day. Bye, everybody. Well, have a very nice day. I hope you're doing well. There we go. That's better. Have a good one, everybody. Bye now.